Ah, isn't it fascinating? The way their faces twist, their voices quiver, their masks crack all because you've done the unthinkable. You've shattered their illusion. The grand performance where they cast themselves as the indispensable stars of your story. They built it so carefully, didn't they? A tale where you're the helpless little pawn, fumbling in the dark, desperate for their guiding hand. But then, oh, then you dared to say it without saying it, I don't need you. It's a symphony of their worst nightmares come alive. Their hearts burn with a hatred so raw, so visceral, because you didn't crumble when they withdrew their so-called support. You didn't fall apart without their approval, without their carefully rationed crumbs of attention. No, instead you stood taller, your shadow stretching long and wide, blotting out their fragile little egos. It's not just that you don't need them, it's that they can't stand the thought of you being whole, complete, and thriving without their hand in it. They've spent their lives crafting this facade, this intricate illusion where their worth is tied to being needed. And when you rip that illusion apart, when you stand there with that audacious grin that says, I see through you, oh, it's chaos, their sense of self crumbles. Because without your need, they're left with nothing but the hollow echo of their own irrelevance. The moment you begin to feel whole and complete within yourself, you unknowingly unleash a tidal wave of discomfort in those who have built their sense of worth around being needed. They might not admit it, perhaps not even to themselves, but their entire identity is often wrapped up in the idea that others rely on them. They thrive on being the ones you turn to for guidance, for comfort, for reassurance. So when you step back and show them that you are more than capable of standing on your own, it's not just an act of independence, it's an act of defiance against the world they've constructed for themselves. At first, they may not even recognize what's happening. They'll wonder why your questions have stopped, why your need for their constant involvement has vanished. They'll chalk it up to a phase or a fleeting change. But then, as the pattern continues, a deeper realization starts to creep in. You're not just managing without them, you're thriving. You're making decisions with confidence, carving your own path, and embracing your journey without leaning on their crutch. And that realization, it cuts deep. You see, their sense of self has been tied to this notion that they are essential to your success, your happiness, your very existence. They've built their ego around being the savior, the problem solver, the indispensable guide. It's not malicious, not always. Sometimes it's born from a genuine desire to help. But over time, that desire morphs into a dependency of its own. They need to feel needed. And when you take that away, it leaves a gaping hole where their identity once stood. Your strength doesn't just threaten their ego, it forces them to confront the reality of who they are without the validation of being your cornerstone. And that's a terrifying thing for someone who has spent their life defining themselves through others. Your independence, your ability to stand tall without them, becomes a mirror that reflects their own insecurities, their own fears, their own doubts. It's not about you at all. It's about what you represent. You represent a world where they are not the center of attention, where they are not the lifeline, and where they must find meaning outside of being needed. This shift in dynamic isn't just uncomfortable for them, it's deeply unsettling. It forces them to question their value, their purpose. For so long, they may have believed that their worth was tied to how much they could give, how much they could give, how much they could support, how much they could do for others. And when you show them that you don't need those things, it's as if you're pulling the rug out from under them. It's not a rejection of them as people, but it feels like one. It feels like a direct challenge to everything they've built their self-image around. The beauty of this transformation is that it's not about pushing them away or tearing them down. It's about reclaiming your own power, your own sense of self. It's about realizing that you are enough, that you have everything within you to create the life you want. And in doing so, you inadvertently force them to look inward, to confront the parts of themselves they may have ignored for years. That's where the real discomfort lies, not in your independence, but in the introspection it demands of them. For some, this realization may lead to growth. They may come to understand that their worth isn't tied to being needed, that they can find fulfillment in their own right. But for others, it may lead to resentment, anger, and an attempt to pull you back into their orbit. They'll try to convince you that you're making a mistake, that you're pushing away people who care about you, that you're being selfish. But you'll see through it. You'll recognize that their words are not about you, they're about their fear of losing the role they've clung to for so long. As you continue to embrace your independence, you'll notice something extraordinary happening. The relationships that truly matter, the ones built on mutual respect and genuine connection, will grow stronger. The people who see your growth and celebrate it will become your allies, your supporters, your true companions. And those who can't handle your strength, those who feel threatened by your wholeness, will begin to fade away. It's a natural process, a shedding of the old to make way for the new. The power in all of this lies in your ability to stand firm, to stay true to yourself. It's not about proving anything to anyone else. It's about honoring your journey, your growth, your evolution. You don't need to justify your independence or explain your choices. The people who matter will understand, and those who don't are not your concern. Your strength is not a weapon, it's a shield, a testament to everything you've overcome and everything you're capable of achieving. In the end, their discomfort is a reflection of their own struggles, not yours. Your independence is not a rejection of them, but a celebration of yourself. And as you continue to grow, to thrive, to embrace your completeness, you'll find that their opinions, their fears, their doubts no longer hold any power over you. You are free, and in that freedom lies the truest form of strength. Their hatred, their disdain, their venomous words, it all comes from a place so far removed from you that it's almost laughable. They lash out, they criticize, they spread their bitterness as though it's about you, as though you're the source of their pain. But the truth is far simpler, far more revealing. Their anger has never truly been about you. It's always been about them, about their fears, their insecurities, their inability to face the glaring truth of their irrelevance in your story. When someone depends on being needed, when their sense of worth is tied to the idea that others rely on them, the moment that dependence is removed, it's like tearing down the very foundation of their identity. They've built their lives around being the hero, the cornerstone, the one you can't possibly live without. And when you show them intentionally or not that you don't need them to feel complete, that you are capable of thriving without their input or approval, it shakes them to their core. What you're witnessing when they react with hatred or bitterness isn't a rational response to your actions, it's the thrashing of their ego as it grapples with the void left behind. They see your strength and feel their own weakness magnified. They see your independence and are forced to confront the fragility of their own self-worth. You've stripped away their sense of control, their perceived importance, and what's left is an uncomfortable emptiness they can't bear to face. It's almost poetic, isn't it? The way they try to turn their fear into your flaw, their insecurity into your shortcoming. They'll twist your independence into arrogance, your growth into selfishness, your strength into defiance. It's easier for them to hate you than to confront the truth that their relevance was always conditional, always dependent on your willingness to need them. By breaking free, you've exposed the illusion they built their identity on, and that's a truth far more painful than any insult they could hurl your way. This is where the real challenge comes in recognizing that their hatred isn't about you at all. It's about the mirror you've unintentionally held up to them, the reflection of their own inadequacies staring back at them. Their hatred is their defense mechanism, their way of protecting themselves from the reality they can't escape. They cling to their anger because it's easier than self-reflection, easier than growth, easier than acknowledging that they have to find a sense of purpose beyond being needed by others. The beauty of this realization is that it frees you from their opinions, their judgments, their attempts to tear you down. When you understand that their venom is rooted in their own struggles, it loses its power over you. You see their hatred for what it truly is, a projection of their pain, not a reflection of your worth. And in that understanding, you find a profound sense of liberation. You stop taking their words personally. You stop internalizing their bitterness. You stop letting their opinions dictate how you see yourself. Instead, you rise above it, not out of spite, but out of a deep sense of self-awareness. You recognize that their hatred is not your burden to carry, not your responsibility to fix. It belongs to them, and them alone. And here's the irony: the more you detach from their negativity, the more it fuels their frustration. They want you to react, to defend yourself, to fight back. They want to pull you into their chaos, to make you question your choices, to make you doubt your strength. But when you refuse to engage, when you stand firm in your independence, it only magnifies their discomfort. Your refusal to validate their hatred is the ultimate act of defiance. In time, their venom will lose its sting. Their words will become hollow echoes, fading into the background as you continue to move forward. You'll realize that their opinions were never as important as they seemed, that their hatred was never as powerful as it felt. You'll see that their attempts to drag you down were nothing more than the flailing of someone struggling to find their place in a world where they are no longer the center of attention. The truth is, their hatred is a sign of your growth, your strength, your transformation. It's a testament to the fact that you've stepped out of the role they assigned you and into the person you were always meant to be. And while they may never understand that, while they may continue to fight against it, their opinions no longer matter. You've reclaimed your power, your autonomy, your sense of self. And that is something they can never take away. And so, the story comes full circle, doesn't it? They built their world on the premise that you needed them, that your existence somehow depended on their validation, their support, their approval. But when you stepped away from that narrative, when you chose yourself over their control, you didn't just rewrite your story, you shattered theirs. It wasn't just independence, it was liberation. It was the quiet revolution of realizing that you are enough, that you've always been enough, and that their belief in their own importance was nothing more than a carefully crafted illusion. Their hatred was loud, wasn't it? Deafening at times. They tried to drown you in their bitterness, to suffocate you with their venom. But here's the thing: their noise is just that noise. It's hollow, desperate, a futile attempt to reclaim the power they never truly had over you. They thought they could break you with their words, with their actions, with their disdain, but instead you grew stronger, you stood taller, you became unshakable. And that, more than anything, is what haunts them. Because deep down, they know the truth. They know that their hatred isn't about you, it's about them. It's about the cracks in their own foundation, the emptiness they can't fill, the insecurities they can't escape. Your independence is a mirror, reflecting everything they fear about themselves. And they hate you for it, because you force them to confront the one thing they've been running from their entire lives, their own irrelevance. But this isn't about them, is it? It never was. This is about you. It's about the strength you've found, the growth you've embraced, the person you've become. It's about the courage it takes to walk away from the expectations, the roles, the dependencies that others try to impose on you. It's about standing in your truth unapologetically, even when the world around you tries to tear you down. You've learned something they'll never understand: that true power comes from within. It's not about control or manipulation or being needed. It's about knowing who you are, owning your worth, and refusing to let anyone define you. It's about finding peace in your solitude, strength in your independence, and joy in your authenticity. And that kind of power, it's untouchable, it's unbreakable, it's yours. They'll never admit it, but they need you more than you ever needed them. Not because you gave them anything tangible, but because your dependence was their validation. And now that it's gone, they're left with nothing but their own reflection. It's a hard truth to swallow, but it's not your burden to carry. Their feelings, their fears, their hatred, that's their journey, not yours. Your journey is about freedom. It's about stepping into the fullness of who you are without apology, without hesitation, without fear. It's about realizing that you don't need their approval, their acceptance, or their love to be whole. You are whole because you choose to be. Because you've decided that your worth isn't up for debate. Because you've embraced the beautiful, messy, extraordinary truth of who you are. And as you move forward, you'll find that their noise grows quieter. Their opinions fade into the background. Their hatred loses its weight. because you're not looking back anymore. You're not carrying their baggage, their expectations, their judgment. You're walking your path, your way on your terms. And that is the ultimate victory. You've broken free, not just from them, but from the need to prove anything to anyone. You've reclaimed your life, your power, your voice. And in doing so, you've shown the world and yourself that you are unstoppable, that you are enough, that you always were.